All right, today we're doing something a bit different. We're not just going to talk about a building, we're actually going to take a tour inside the very heart of India's democracy, the brand new parliament. So let's dive right in.
Okay, so picture this. You're right there with this group of students. You're stepping through those massive doors for the very first time. Just imagine taking in the sheer scale of it all, the feeling that history is literally being made inside these walls. I mean, this is so much more than just a government building, right? It's really the stage where a nation's story unfolds. So for the first part of our tour, let's just look at the building itself. Because the architecture here, it's not just about looking good. It's packed with symbolism. Seriously, every single brick and carving tells a story about the nation's democratic ideals. So you might notice something pretty unique about the shape. It's not round, it's not square, it's a triangle. And that's totally on purpose. The triangular shape is all about symbolizing balance, inclusivity, making sure every voice is heard, and this idea of a nation moving forward. And, get this, on top of all that, it's also a green building. It's designed to slash electricity use by a whopping 30%.
And this comparison here, it just shows you the evolution perfectly. On the left, you've got the old parliament, which is now called Samvidhan Sadan. I mean, an incredible historic building that served the country for over 7 decades. But, as India grew and evolved, its democracy just, it needed more space, it needed better technology, and that's where the new building on the right comes in, designed specifically for the needs of a modern democracy.
When you step inside, it honestly feels like you're walking into a museum of India. The walls are just covered in this incredible art. You'll see carvings of peacocks and lotuses, really intricate tribal art, and patterns you'd normally find in ancient temples. It's this powerful statement, right? Even as this building looks straight into the future, it's also a constant reminder that a strong democracy can never forget its deep, diverse cultural roots.
Okay, so we've seen the stunning halls and the art. Now let's head into the chambers, where the real work of governing happens. It's time to get our heads around India's bicameral system. What's that? Well, it means there are 2 houses, both working together as one parliament.
And here they are. On the left, you've got the Lok Sabha, also known as the House of the People. Its whole design is inspired by the peacock, India's national bird. And on the right, that's the Rajya Sabha, or the Council of States, and its theme is the lotus flower. It's cool, right? Their different looks are a clue to their very different roles.
So what does bicameral actually mean? It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It just means a legislature with 2 separate houses, or chambers. And in India, this setup is really smart because it does 2 jobs at once. The Lok Sabha is there to directly represent the people, the citizens. And the Rajya Sabha, it's there to make sure the interests of all the individual states get a voice too.
Okay, so how do you even get a seat in one of these houses? Well, for the Lok Sabha, it's pretty straightforward. The people of India vote directly for their representatives. Simple as that. But the Rajya Sabha is a little different. The process is indirect. Its members are actually elected by the politicians who have already been elected to the state legislative assemblies. It's a way to really reinforce that federal nature of the country.
And check this out. This is an incredibly powerful symbol of just rule. It's called the Sengo. And it's a historic scepter that dates all the way back to the ancient Chola period. It was actually given to India's very first prime minister to mark the transfer of power. And now it sits right there in the Lok Sabha, near the speaker's chair. You see that figure on top? That's Nandi, a symbol of justice. It's a constant, visible reminder that all power has to be guided by what's right.
All right, so we've seen the building, we understand the structure. Now for the big question, how does it all actually work? Let's get into Parliament's main job, turning a simple idea into a law for the entire nation. And to do that, we're going to follow the journey of a really important one.
Now, to really get this, let's do something a little creative. Let's imagine a law could actually talk. Let's say we're listening to the Right to Education Act. It might say something like, "Hey, most people just call me RTE, but listen, I didn't just show up out of nowhere. My roots go way back to an idea, a principle deep inside the Indian Constitution, the idea that every single child deserves an education."
And believe me, its journey was a long one. It took decades. Back in the 90s, the court started arguing that education was a fundamental part of the right to life. That thinking led to a major constitutional amendment in 2002. But even then, it still wasn't an actual law. The bill was finally introduced in 2008, where it was studied, debated like crazy, and then finally, in August of 2009, it was passed and became the act that we know today.
So, the story of the Right to Education Act pretty much follows the standard path for any law. First, a bill is introduced.
It often gets sent to a special committee to be studied in detail. Then it's debated, literally clause by clause, in one of the houses. After that, the entire process gets repeated in the other house, and only if it passes both does it finally go to the president to be signed and become an official law.
So we keep saying the word bill. What exactly is that? Well, think of it as the draft or the blueprint for a new law. It's the written proposal that all the members of Parliament debate and argue over and amend and try to perfect before it can get that final stamp of approval and become an official act.
But here's the thing. Making laws is really only half the job. So, for our next section, let's explore one of Parliament's other super important roles: keeping the government in check, making sure it's actually doing its job right. And this all comes down to one word: accountability.
And this brings up a really important question, right? Once a law like the Right to Education Act is on the books, who's in charge of making sure it actually happens? Well, that's the job of the executive branch, basically the Prime Minister and their team of ministers. But how does Parliament make sure they're held accountable for it?
They've got a few key tools in their toolbox. First off, the entire government is collectively answerable to the Lok Sabha. Then you've got the famous question hour. This is where any member of Parliament can stand up and directly grill a minister on their policies and actions. And behind the scenes, you have these powerful groups called standing committees, and their entire job is to scrutinize what government departments are doing and demand answers. And here's a perfect real-world example of how that works. A parliamentary committee noticed that some states didn't have a dedicated department for Ayush, India's traditional medicine systems. So the committee recommended that the national ministry should step in. Because of that, the government had to issue a formal reply, confirming that they had, in fact, asked the states to act on it. Now, this back and forth might seem like a small thing, but it's the absolute core of accountability. A formal question that requires a formal, public answer.
Okay, so we've talked about all the formal procedures. But there's a whole other side to Parliament, the human element. It's not just about dry reports and procedures. It's a place that's buzzing with passion, fierce debate, and sometimes, believe it or not, even poetry and sharp wit.
Take this for example. Back in 2011, the late Sushma Swaraj, an incredible parliamentarian, used this powerful verse to criticize the government. She didn't just list a bunch of facts, no, she used poetry to elevate the whole debate, framing it as a question of leadership. It made her point absolutely unforgettable.
And here's the best part. The Prime Minister at the time, Dr. Manmohan Singh, didn't come back with a boring statistic. He replied with another poetic line. It was this witty, humble response that also showed off his own command of language. And that right there, that's the dynamic human side of parliamentary debate that you don't always hear about.
And this isn't just something from the past. This tradition is alive and well. Here we see the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman, quoting from the ancient Tamil text, the Tirukkural, right in the middle of a budget speech. It's just a perfect example of how this timeless wisdom about ethics and good governance is woven directly into the fabric of modern democracy. So, we've toured this incredible building of stone and symbols. We've walked through the process of making a law. We've even felt a bit of the spirit that lives within its walls. But it leaves you with one final question, doesn't it? What truly gives this institution its power? It's not the marble or the beautiful art. It's the people it represents. It's the citizens who, together, give democracy its voice.